Hello and welcome to Video Village. Roadkill Entertainment presents Video Village, basically is what it is. My name is Jason Byrne, or Jay Byrne is what I go by. And this is the very first, this is episode 1 of our podcast here that we're going to be doing. Today I'm going to be doing it by myself for the first one. I'm going to do a kind of an origins podcast, and I'm also going to talk about some Scream Factory releases and stuff like that, because everyone's been doing a Scream Factory episode, so I figured might as well. So you say to yourself, why am I doing a podcast? Is this interesting? Does anyone actually care that I'm doing a podcast? Well, okay. Well, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and I've been saying, well, I've got plenty to say. I can talk, I can go on and on, blah, 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 right? So I figured, why not just do one myself? And typically, I would want to have a guest on the show. And from time to time, I think I'm going to have my buddy Mike Welch on the show. I also have a few other people I've got in mind to get on the show. Some friends and independent filmmakers. And this podcast is going to cover a lot of ground. It's going to be about horror movies. It's going to be about just stuff in general. Things that I find interesting. Well, I'm not going to deal with politics or anything like that. It's going to be more about movies and stuff like that. We're going to talk about independent filmmaking. We're going to do some stuff. We're going to talk about Roadkill Entertainment and some of the stuff that we're working on. So that's that as far as what we're going to be. That's what I'm defining this podcast as. If I sound a little bit weird today, it's kind of awkward because I'm just sitting here by myself in a room talking into a microphone. But, I mean, I guess that's the way that it goes. So grab some water. Okay, so I guess I'll move forward. I'll get started here. And some of you out there might be thinking, Video Village, where does the name come from? Everyone else, a lot of people would assume there's kind of two places that the name can come from. Video Village itself is a term that's used to describe like the area of a film shoot that has all like the monitors and stuff like that. They always use that as Video Village. They call that Video Village. That's not really where I was coming from, although it's kind of got a multiple purpose, dual purpose. You can do that. I'm coming more from, let's see, when I was a kid, there was a video store. I lived in Tiverton, Rhode Island. There is a video store. It was called Video Village, and it was this classic old wood-paneled looking, kind of like the pic that I chose to use for the logo for Video Village. Classic video store, the ones that had like the awesome VHS section. I mean, I'll just to state, I'm 38 years old, so I'm not a younger person. Like, I grew up during like the 80s video era. I wouldn't say it's a better era, because as far as technology is concerned, anybody who's edited on VHS or used video and whatnot knows what kind of a hassle it is. It's a real pain in the ass to work with video, but you know what? There's also a charm to video as well. But there was a charm. It was more about the boxes and about the atmosphere. Like, why we went to these video stores. Why a bunch of us would get together, friends, maybe on a Friday night. Me and my buddy Peter Lambert used to do this like every single Friday night. We just get together and we would go down and go to whatever local video store we could find that was open. One we went to was called Wonderland Video. It was in Fall River, I think. It was right on the Fall River Tiverton line. We used to go there all the time. And it was funny because they would let the kids actually rent porno movies there, we were underage. We were like 16 years old. But we rented Caligula, the unrated version, from the porno section, and they let us rent it. I don't know if we ever rented any actual porno from the porno section, but we did rent Caligula, which is if you've ever seen the movie, the XXX version with Malcolm McDowell, it is porn. It's flat out porn in certain spots. There's kind of a nostalgic thing to that. Like, I look back on that era and I really miss that era. So I decided to call, I had made a page that I was doing like interviews, like little reviews of movies and whatnot. Well, so I decided that I'm not much of a writer, and I'm not going to be like writing reviews out all the time. So I got rid of that, and I decided, well, the way to go with this was to do like a podcast, because I can just sit here and talk about movies and talk about what I like about movies and what I saw and what's going on and this and that and blah blah blah. So that is basically where I'm coming from. That's what Video Village is. Video Village was an old video store that I used to live next to. And when I was a kid, and we used to go there with my parents and whatnot, and classic looking place. Origins. I'm going to start out with the origin of Roadkill Entertainment so that anybody who's listening to this can know what the deal is with Roadkill Entertainment. What is Roadkill Entertainment? It's a little hard to describe sometimes for certain people. Roadkill Entertainment was it was originally called Psychotic Productions Presents. And that was in around 1995. I started making short films, and I just, everybody has their own company, what they call their short films. So I used to call them Psychotic Productions Presents, right? That makes sense. I didn't like that after a while. I just thought it sounded kind of stupid. So I tried to come up with another name, and Roadkill came to mind. So then it went from Psychotic Productions Presents to Roadkill Video, I think was the first one. And for a while, it was Roadkill Video Presents, and it was Roadkill Productions. It just kept changing to Roadkill something. And when I started recording music, I did a bunch of some solo projects on my own. I decided, well, what would be an all-encompassing title? Roadkill Entertainment. That's it. And this is over a period of years, because I've been doing short films for an awful long time. So Roadkill Entertainment, when it started, was just me. It was my stuff. I mean, at that point, I had a film that I had put together called VHS. And yes, I did call a movie VHS in 2006, which is long before the horror movie VHS came out. So when that came out, I was like, oh man. And the funny part about it is when that first came out, there was a promotional picture for the movie VHS, the newer one, the modern horror anthology. And it had a picture of a guy with an Alice Sweet Alice type mask, if you know what I'm talking about. It's one of those clear masks with the makeup outlines of the face on it. Well, it had a picture of a guy with that mask. And upon looking at that, I just kind of was like, okay, that's weird, because I was in a band, well, still am. It was a band with my friend Peter Lambert. We called ourselves Nerdy Warts, and we recorded a lot of music under the moniker Nerdy Warts. And my look was to wear that mask. So when I saw the ad, and it was a movie coming out called VHS, and it had a guy with that Alice Sweet Alice mask, I'm like, what the hell? Did these people just go to my website and steal my life? But obviously not. But it's a really weird coincidence. But yes, I did make a movie called VHS long before there was a VHS anthology. And mine was an anthology as well. Basically what I did was I took a bunch of my old short films, the old Roadkill stuff, that was scripted. So most of it was scripted. And I cut them all together in a feature-length film. So it's really a collection of shorts that's called Feature. It's not a bad movie. It still holds up pretty well, and there's some good stuff in there. That's one of the ones that I don't push as much on people because it's kind of old, and a lot of people they look at that stuff and they just think, I don't want them to judge that as our ability as far as a production company or a film company. We're a lot better than that. At least I think so, anyway. So there was that, and then there was the documentary that I made, a documentary called The Final Episode, which was about a band that I was in at one point in time. It was a band called Room 18, and I was part of, and then I became part of the band. I was a videographer at first, then I became part of the band later in the band's history. But I had documented that whole period, and the band never really went anywhere. And there was a little bit of conflict. I mean, you kind of create conflict for a documentary, but there wasn't a lot of conflict between the band members. So it was all kind of manufactured stuff for the most part. Everyone pretty much got along. But so the band broke up. And then I had all this footage lying around, and I had done a documentary about the band while the band was together. It felt like a propaganda film, but and that one was called 18 Plus. So years later, I decided to go back. It was in around 2006 or so. I decided to go and recut that documentary and put the whole story together. And my wife, Katie Riz, who is also a producer on some of my movies as well, because she helps pay for a lot of stuff, so she ends up being the producer. And she does photography. She's always been a photographer. And my buddy Pete, who was in the band at the time, who just wanted to move on, he was past that point. You know what I mean? He didn't particularly, he remembers the period kind of fondly, but there are things about his life that he just looks back on that period and he just wants to move on. So they're all like, oh God, Jay, you're going to go and you're going to edit this documentary again? I'm like, no, but I'm going to do it right this time. I never felt like it was done right. So, I loaded all the footage into a computer and I digitally edited the final episode. And it's an hour and 45-minute documentary that goes through this whole period of it's 4-year period that documents the entire history of the band. And I'm pretty proud of it. It never officially screened anywhere. I had screened an earlier version of the documentary, but it never really screened anywhere. So that, a lot of times I get a little bit, I wish more people had seen it. But those are my first projects as Roadkill Entertainment. That was me on my own, and I was making short films. Then here comes Hometown. I'd been involved in a project with a couple of guys. I'm not going to get too heavy into this because, time has passed and I've mended those relationships. Well, one of them, we've straightened out our differences to a certain degree. We don't really hang out, me and this person, anymore. But, that is that. And it's not bad, that whole situation. So I had met these guys and I had started making a movie with them. And it all fell apart. And it wasn't, at the time, I think I wanted to do something on my own. I didn't want to be like making a movie by committee, which is what ended up happening, because there was a lot of people that were just trying to butt their nose into everything that I did. So I got a little frustrated and I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. But I still wanted to make movies. So I backed out of that, and we didn't even really get that far into the process. And I wasn't that horribly important to the process because these guys had their own equipment. I was like a hired hand more than anything else. So I decided when I got back that, okay, I'm going to make a movie. I don't care. I've got this movie bug and I'm going to do it. And I went to my old friend Eliza and I said, you're going to star in my movie and we're going to make a horror anthology and it's going to be cool. It's going to be creepy. I dug out this old script I had it was called Something to Turn Your Stomach, I think. And I polished it up. I'd written that script right out of high school. So the dialogue was pretty bad. I literally went through and rewrote a lot of the dialogue in that script. And so from that point on, I started making this movie, and I changed the title to Hometown. I called the movie Hometown. And I'm like, I'm going to make this movie. And I was making this 100% by myself. It was me and my wife and my friends, and that was it. And I made a short story, the first story in the movie, which is called The House on King Road, with my friend Eliza. And at that point, I needed more actors. I wanted to get more actors involved. So I went to a local Newbury Comics, and this is where I met my buddy Mike Welch, who became a film partner of mine. And he will be kind of like my co-host on this podcast on certain episodes, whenever he's available, because he works a pretty busy schedule. So if I decide to record one and he's not around, then I'll just do one without him. But if he's here, if he can make it, I want him to be here. But so I went to talk to this guy, he's this bearded guy who looked kind of creepy, which is really funny because Mike is such a mild-mannered guy, but he had a creepy look. Bigger bearded looking guy, red beard, kind of bald, and he was tattooed and stuff. And I went to him and I said, I'm looking for people to play in my movie. Would any of you guys that work here at this Newbury Comics be interested? And I gave them a copy of the first story that I had shot for Hometown. And because I figured, it's a record store, a lot of people go in there and ask them all the time, if you want to be a part of our project, so to speak. So I went in there, I gave them my short, and we became friends after that. And they decided that I got a few actors from the store to be involved in Hometown. And through filming, I got to know these guys, and I got to realize that Mike was very into the idea of filming. And we were just like two peas in a pod when it came to making movies. Like, we had a lot of the same interests, and we liked a lot of the same stuff. It was kind of weird, and we're exactly the same age, basically the same age. So it was, and he lives in Taunton his whole life, and I live down here. So it was kind of weird. It was weird that I had never met this person before. So I decided that I wanted Mike to become a bigger part of making the movie. So we teamed up, and he became kind of like my key production assistant. Basically, he was there. He was helping me out through like the second half of Hometown, through like the whole shoot. I really didn't have a shoot without Mike around. I pretty much had Mike there all the time. So through that, we decided, hey, you know what? When Hometown was done, we promoted it. I've done a few things with it. I've shown it around. I've sold a bunch of copies, and people have responded quite well to Hometown. I'm actually really, really happy with the response that Hometown has gotten. I still think there's a charm to the movie, and I appreciate it for what it is. This was the first real Roadkill Entertainment project that involved people outside my close group of friends. So I kind of formed my own little film company here. And I always kind of look at it as, there's VHS final episode, then Hometown, and then You Better Watch Out. But it's almost like Hometown's the first real movie. I include VHS in the final episode because these are projects that I worked on. These are movies that I made. So it's hard not to include them. But so then, to make a long story longer, I don't know, short, whatever. I know I'm rambling on, but that's the whole point, right? We went forward with the actual, with another project after that. Me and Mike became really good friends, and we wrote a script together for You Better Watch Out. It was another horror anthology, because that's what we're doing. But and we decided we're going to do this on a little bit more of a professional level. So we did some casting, we got people involved, and we made that. And that brought Mike into the fold. So now, Roadkill Entertainment has gone from being just like me and my music and all that stuff to basically being me, Mike Welch, and my wife, Katie Riz. It's the three of us, and we are Roadkill Entertainment, and we're trying to make something out of Roadkill. Our basic intent is to have our own little independent film company that we make movies from locally. Yeah, great. If somebody wants to pick up one of our movies and distribute it, like officially through something, that's great. But we're putting them out ourselves. We're selling them ourselves, and we're doing our own runs, and we're running our own website, and we're trying to get ourselves out there. I mean, this is the true independent spirit. I mean, people talk about independent filmmaking. This is independent filmmaking. I mean, money out of our pockets, making it. So we tried to do like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. We got like, I think we got like $70 on Indiegogo. I don't even know if it was like $70, $76. Kickstarter, we got like $26 and didn't make our goal, obviously. It's hard because it's really hard to find an audience. And that's partly what this podcast is about as well, is maybe through people like hearing our stories and listening to us and, knowing what our interests are, maybe we'll be able to kind of create an audience by doing that as well. I don't know. That's part of the process, but there's more to it than that, because I am a huge movie collector. I buy far too many movies. It's all I spend my money on is buy movies. So I get a lot of like cult and horror stuff and other stuff too. It's not just going to be cult and horror, but I get a lot of movies as soon as they come out. So like, I guess that'd be pretty good for me to do reviews on these movies because, people want to know if they want to buy them. A person like me, I blind buy a lot of stuff. But yeah, so that's how that works. But Roadkill Entertainment, that's basically the history of Roadkill Entertainment. And it has become this. It's kind of turning into its own little crazy thing. It's this little film world. We're making our own movies, and now I'm trying to do this. And so hopefully this becomes more as time goes on. And hopefully people aren't just like, shut up, I don't want to hear you. But you know what? I guess that's the whole point of a podcast. So, okay, but I'm going to move on now. I'm going to move on to the next step of this program, I guess. And I'm going to talk about Scream Factory releases, because probably that's one of the main reasons why most people probably are listening to this, because that's what they want to hear about. So let's talk about Scream Factory, okay? I have purchased like literally almost every single release the Scream Factory has put out, including some of the Shout, but I'm not going to get into the Shout stuff, but I'm going to talk about the Scream Factory stuff. I've got like stacks of movies here on the desk with me, and it's like, where do I start, or which one do I start with? But I'll go back to what was cool about Scream Factory for me and how I got into Scream Factory. And I mean, any horror fan is going to want to collect these things, but for me, I've been collecting movies since VHS. I went to Laserdisc. I had a big Laserdisc collection. And the cool thing about Laserdisc back in the day was there was company like Anchor Bay wasn't Laserdisc, but they might have had it. No, I think it was Elite was mainly Laserdisc. And I used to collect a lot of movies from a company called Elite. And these were like the first time a lot of these horror movies came out remastered, widescreen with special edition, with special features and commentaries and all kinds of cool stuff. And then once Laserdisc basically failed as a format, which is crazy because I spent a lot of money on Laserdisc. Laserdisc used to go for like a special edition would be like $100. It was crazy, but it would come in a big box. It was like a record, it had a big gatefold and everything like that. They're very collectible, and I kind of wish I still had them all. Actually, I ended up just throwing out my player when I lived in Chicago for 6 years. And because nobody would buy it. I couldn't sell the player. At that point in time, there wasn't a market for it. Like, there wasn't a collectible market for it. So, I mean, discs were going for like $1 a piece. You could sell them at a record store for $1 if they would take them. So then, so I got rid of my player. But so then, for me, it was kind of cool that Anchor Bay was the big one for DVD. Anchor Bay was really big in the early DVD years when DVD first started out. They released tons of cool stuff. Hell Night. And there's a million movies that they put out. Evil Dead. Like, they kept releasing the same stuff over and over again, basically. But it was a lot of the stuff that Elite Laserdisc had done in special editions. It's almost like they had bought Elite's catalog from them or acquired Elite's catalog, and they were putting them out. Because Elite did a few DVDs, but they didn't actually do like a large catalog. They had a pretty big catalog, but a lot of their stuff ended up being put out by Anchor Bay when DVD first came out, and still to this day. Well, things are changing hands now, but so it had been a long time. Blu-ray had come out, and it was pretty much the main companies that were doing Blu-ray. There was Image was churning out a few here and there, and I'm a big fan of Blu-ray. Like, for anyone who's not into technology, so to speak, and goes, oh yeah, well, it's not that much better than DVD, you gotta really give it a chance if you're into movies and that. I mean, if you've got a large screen television, if you've got something that's at least like between 40 and 50 inches in your house, I mean, it's stupid not to have a Blu-ray player if you're a film lover. I mean, it's like watching a film print in your own home. I have a surround sound system and posters all up in my room. It's my living room. It's a nice little home theater. And it's literally like watching a movie in the theater in your house. It's amazing. Like, when I was younger, watching VHS tapes and just copying them like slow speed SLP3 movies to a tape, I would have never have thought years later I could jump forward to like 2013 and I'd be able to watch a movie in better than theatrical quality in my own home. And I mean, this is just an apartment. So anyway, so Shout was a great company. They had put out a bunch of stuff. They had done some cult releases. Then all of a sudden, they started announcing this new label called Scream Factory. And I remember the first releases that they put out were Halloween 2 and 3. I think those were their very, very first releases. And like the Funhouse was to follow and stuff like that. Tobe Hooper's Funhouse. So I'll go back to the first releases and give you my, like, if you haven't picked them up, I'll give you my opinion of what I think of those releases. So we got Halloween 2 and we got Halloween 3 right here. These are the first two, pretty much sure the first two that I got when Scream Factory started coming out with movies. Because I've had them all, like, I pre-order them on Amazon. Scream Factory is killing me. They're like, I mean, I am going to be in debt from them, but that's besides the point. So Halloween 2 and 3 came out. Now, I had already had Halloween 2 on Blu-ray. Halloween 2 had come out in a special edition by Universal itself, which was kind of crappy because then all of a sudden the Scream Factory label announced it, but they had tons of bonus stuff. 2-disc set, it has the television version of the movie, which was a big deal to us because growing up, me and my friend Peter Lambert, we were obsessed with the television version of Halloween 2 because that's how I originally saw the movie. And there was a lot of extra scenes in it. And I mean, this is a different era too. Like, a lot of people, like, this generation is familiar with television versions as we were, because stuff just gets like edited and censored now, and a lot of stuff actually gets shown. A lot of networks, like cable networks and stuff, can show anything, so it doesn't really matter. But so Halloween 2 came out, and I had the previous release, which has Terror in the Aisles on it as well. So I kept it for Terror in the Aisles. I debated over selling it back a bunch of times, but I ended up keeping it just for Terror in the Aisles. The transfer that Scream Factory did is really good. Like, basically, it's the same exact transfer as Halloween 2 that came out by Universal. So if you have the Universal one, it's literally the same master. But what Scream did is they went in and they cleaned up some of the pops and the scratches that were left on the Universal master, which I never had a problem with it. I think the Universal master is technically a tiny bit sharper when you're watching it because they use some digital equipment to some DNR, digital noise reduction, to remove scratches and all that stuff. You know what I mean? But I mean, they did a really good job with it. So, but I mean, this special edition that came out from Halloween 2 when it was awesome because this movie had never really gotten that much love. It was just kind of like put back out in video, and I know a lot of people love Halloween 2. I mean, I grew up kind of liking Halloween 2 better than Halloween 1. As I've gotten older, I mean, I appreciate Halloween 1 a lot better. But I kind of like this. I mean, just so you can see what's actually on this, if you you don't have it. The Scream Factory Blu-ray release. It's a Blu-ray DVD combo, right? Yes. It's got a Blu-ray and a DVD, but the Blu-ray has the movie and the bonus features, and the DVD is the television cut of Halloween. It's like Rick Rosenthal's alternate version of Halloween. But it's cut for TV too, so it's weird. But there's tons of extra footage in there. It's kind of worth a watch. But this special feature has a theatrical version, television cut. Let's see. There's an audio commentary with Rick Rosenthal and actor Leo Rossi on the theatrical version, of course, of the movie. There's audio commentary with actor and stunt coordinator Dick Warlock. That's the guy who played Michael Myers in the movie, who was actually the stunt guy who did Michael Myers. Not the guy who played it in the first movie there, Nick Castle. Well, actually, there was a few of them that played it in the first movie, but I always kind of liked Dick Warlock's version of Michael Myers better anyway. I know he's just creepier. The mask was creepier. It was worn out. There's just a look to Michael Myers in Halloween 2 that I always found creepy. Although the hair looks different on the mask, but that's something else. There's a documentary called The Nightmare Isn't Over, The Making of Halloween 2. It's got interviews with all of them. That's pretty interesting to watch, actually. I love the Horror's Hallowed Grounds. Sean Clark of Horror Hound and whatnot. He does these little featurettes where he goes around and he goes to all the locations and he checks out where the movie was filmed. These are awesome. I kind of wish every Scream release had them. They do to a certain. Some of them have them. They don't all have them. So, but it's got that. It's got and then there's deleted scenes. Some of the deleted scenes are just extra random stuff, and some of the stuff from the TV version. I think they put some of the scenes from because it was the stuff that was on the Universal as well, and the theatrical trailer and still gallery and all that stuff. But I mean, what's really awesome about these Scream Factory releases, and I'm a huge proponent of original poster artwork. That's my big deal, is poster artwork. I mean, I think I'm pretty good at designing posters. They always look 70s because that's what I do. I kind of work on the posters for our movies, and I get the ball rolling for that. But I didn't do the posters I didn't actually draw the images on Hometown and You Better Watch Out. But we are doing our own poster. It's a photograph style poster for the new movie that we're working on called Incidents, which I'll get into later in other episodes. But when I have Mike around, we'll talk more about that. It's still very early stages of that. We only have one of the stories written. We've got the cast and we've got everything pretty much worked out for it, but yeah, I can wait on that one. But what I love about these Scream Factory releases is the inside sleeve is a double-sided. It's a double-sided sleeve. The inner sleeve that goes with the DVD wrap. The DVD wrap, I guess, the Blu-ray wrap is what I guess would be called. And one side is the newly commissioned artwork. They get new artists to do, like a new cover, like kind of like a cool. I don't know. There's different styles. Some of them are comic booky. Some of them are more like old horror movies and whatnot. But they get artists to do these new covers. On the inside, though, you can flip the cover around, and it has the original key art, the original poster artwork. This is like what the old video boxes used to look like, and what you used to see, like the classic horror movie posters. And I'm a big horror movie poster fan, so it's really cool to be able to like flip the inner sleeve and have the original poster art. So if you get the ones with the most of the collector's editions that come out have a sleeve, like a cardboard slip over it, and the disc underneath. And so you can actually have both covers, one on the sleeve and one on the inside, which I feel is the best way to do a cardboard sleeve, because me and my wife always talk about the fact that cardboard slips on Blu-rays and DVD cases are completely pointless when they're exactly the same thing. Like, I keep them because I'm obsessive compulsive about it, and I've got like 2,000 movies, Blu-ray and DVD. But like, I just, it seems wasteful. I mean, it just seems kind of pointless when they just have exactly the same picture on them. So it's kind of nice that you can flip the inside cover and get, the new artwork and then the inner one. But anyway, so Halloween 2 is well worth it. If you have the Universal disc that came out, and you're not a big fan of bonus features or packaging or whatnot, just keep it, because there's really not. I mean, there's a lot of extra stuff on here, but if you're not into bonus features, you're buying this for the bonus features, because it's pretty much the same thing as far as the transfer is concerned. This one's a little bit smoother looking, but I'm more into a natural look for film anyway. Like, leave the grain in, don't wipe it out. They do that on a lot of. It's kind of a thing now that they do with modern releases, but So I'm going to move forward a little quicker on the Scream Factory stuff because I can go on and on and on, but give you the basic idea of what Scream Factory was. They put out Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which is awesome. It has new artwork and the original artwork on the inside as well. This one has audio commentary with Tommy Lee Wallace, the director, a cool documentary. It has another one of those Horror's Hallowed Grounds. The transfer for this looks really nice. It's kind of filmic. People give Universal a lot of crap all the time. If you go on the message boards, like I'm constantly on like Blu-ray.com and stuff like that. If you go on those message boards, people will rip apart like Universal for their transfers. A lot of them seem digitally tinkered. Like they washed them out. They messed with them a little bit. They don't look like film, but this looks pretty good. Most of the ones that Scream Factory has put out actually look pretty filmic. You know, it's almost like they get the non-processed master from Universal, and from that point, they don't do too much tinkering to it, other than maybe wiping out some scratches and some nicks and marks here and there. Just a general, basic kind of cleanup. But Halloween 3 looks great. Looks and sounds awesome. This is a great disc. If you love Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is kind of controversial as well because there's a lot of fans out there that don't because Michael Myers isn't in it. And the original concept behind Halloween 3 was that John Carpenter, who had made the original Halloween, and Deborah Hill, who was the producer on it, they decided if we were going to do these every year, 1 and 2 would come out. They're like, we should do a different story every year. It should be a different Halloween type story if we're going to make sequels and do new ones. So this was their attempt at that. And I'm not sure that it did very well at the box office when it originally came out. I think it wasn't the greatest. Yeah, you know, it didn't do that great when it originally came out, but it's gotten a lot of love over the years, and it's more of almost like a sci-fi movie than a horror film. It's kind of like, it's almost like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It has that, you know, that Invasion of the Body Snatchers type thing, and I think Tommy Lee Wallace has said that, you know, that's what he was going for with that type of movie. He wanted to do, you know, the paranoid thriller, basically. And I mean, I love Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I think it's a great friggin' movie. I love Tom Atkins. He's also in Night of the Creeps, which is awesome. It's just a great movie from a good era. And this is a really good disc. So if you're inclined to buy Halloween 3 Season of the Witch on Blu-ray, get it. Get the Scream Factory release. It's awesome. You won't be disappointed because it's a really good release. All right, I'll move forward a little bit. We can go to the Funhouse. That was one of their next releases that they had put out. Funhouse is awesome as well. There had been a Arrow video. It's a UK label. Had put out a version of the Funhouse overseas, and their version of the Funhouse was, I don't know. My friend got it, and my friend Pete got it, and he said it wouldn't play for him because it was region locked. But he went and got an all region player, and then he could play it. But they were the first to put it out with bonus features, and I was kind of bummed because I love Funhouse. Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse is a great atmospheric movie from like the early 80s. Actually from, where are we? From what the heck is the date on here? 81. So they had put it out, Arrow had put it out, and it had gotten good reviews, and there was a lot of people out there that wanted it. And it was, since it was an import, I'm a little squeamish about imports sometimes because they always end up coming out stateside, and they usually have better features, and they're usually a better transfer. I don't know why. I mean, it doesn't mean that they can't do a good job overseas with stuff, but it almost seems like the American releases tend to be the definitive releases. I don't know why. That's just the way we are. That's just the way it works. But so the Funhouse. Now, this is a great release. This is a commentary by Tobe Hooper, moderated by filmmaker Tim Sullivan. Tim Sullivan's actually the guy who designed the Evil Dead, the Book of the Dead, and Evil Dead, and he's made some other stuff too. I think he directed the 2001 Maniacs or something. I think it's called, like the remake kind of sequel version of 2000 Maniacs that came out with Robert Englund. As an interview with the executive producer, Mark L. Lester, and composer John Beal, audio interview with actor William Finley, theatrical trailer, TV spots, and more. I think the more is just a bunch of random stuff like artwork and whatnot. But like all the other ones, this is a collector's edition, so it has newly commissioned artwork, and it has the original artwork. Well, not on the inside when you originally open it, but when you flip it up, if you flip the cover like I always do. I was OCD about that. I never did that, but I totally do that now. But yeah, the Funhouse is awesome. It's totally worth it if you love this movie. It's a really good transfer, actually. This is another one that's pretty filmic. It doesn't look overly scrubbed. I mean, like I said, people give Universal a lot of crap, but these are Universal movies, and they look pretty decent. So whatever masters they got from Universal, they're worth it. Okay, so I'm going to move along here too, because I'm trying to get through as many of these as I possibly can. I'm going to jump ahead though, and I'm going to go to a brand new release that just came out, because I want to talk about this release, all right? Now, I love Scream Factory. I am obsessed with Scream Factory, okay? But the last couple of releases that they put out, it almost seems like their QC department has been getting lax, because they're putting like 2-3 movies out. I mean, next week, come Tuesday, I've got 2 movies showing up by them: Assault on Precinct 13 and Night of the Comet, which I've never seen and I'm very excited to watch. Yeah, and so they're churning this stuff out. Like, it's like, you know, it's coming out quick. I'm gonna have another drink of water here, so bear with me. Hold on. Anyway, so this stuff is coming out quick. And it almost seems like some of their new releases, some aspect of quality ends up suffering because they're putting them out so fast. For example, Prince of Darkness that came out, the John Carpenter one that came out, which is a great release because that movie's never been officially released in any good format. It came out on DVD, but it was nothing special. It's a good transfer. It looks like, you know, this is one of the Universal ones where it's a little smoothed out, but overall it looks pretty good. The colors are good. It's a nice looking transfer. There's some good bonus features on there. It's well worth the money. But the disc itself, and I don't know if it's just my machine or not, but I'm pretty picky about my equipment, and I have a lot of movies, and I don't have this problem with most of my movies. I mean, there are ones that have issues, but I don't have this problem with most of them. There seems to be a slight sync issue with that movie. I don't know if it's the original soundtrack or not, but the sync seems to drift from time to time. Now, I noticed they're 5.1 tracks. I've noticed, like, in most cases, I end up defaulting to the original track if they have it. They have the original, like, 2-channel surround or mono or whatever on there. I end up watching the movie with that because it seems like these 5.1 tracks that they're getting they tend to have sync issues to them. I don't know why. I don't know if they're creating them themselves or if they're just taking what the studio gives them and there's slight sync problems with them or whatnot. There's been a couple where the sync has been a little bit weird. Maybe it's just the movie. Who knows? And they don't sound right, a lot of these 5.1 mixes that they're doing. They just sound manufactured. So I'll watch the original track if that's the case. And I'm a fan of, like, surround mixes. Like, a lot of people gave the new release, the Halloween 35th Anniversary Edition, shit because it doesn't have the original mono track on it that everyone's been used to listening to for years. But the 7.1, I only have 5.1, so it kind of converts it all down to 5.1. But the surround mix on that is great. The new surround mix sounds amazing. It sounds awesome. So there's really no reason for people to complain about it. I mean, yes, they complain because some sound effects have been changed, and that's a purist thing, and I can kind of see that. As a musician myself, I can see that as, like, you know, when you hear remixes or redos of albums and, you know, things have been changed, sometimes it doesn't sound the same to your ears as what you've been used to listening to for years. So I can understand that. They should have included the original mono. It says the original mono is on there. The mono version that's on there is literally just a down conversion of the 5.1 track or 2.0. I don't even know where it came from. That's another contention. But anyway, they did an awesome job with the surround, and the movie looks great, and I think it looks really impressive. It's a great release for the Halloween 35th Anniversary Edition, the one that came in the book. It just came out recently. However, for whatever reason, a lot of the 5.1, the repurposed 5.1s that come out from Scream Factory, they're not all very good. They have issues. Now, I had jumped ahead to the new release that just come out, Body Bags, the John Carpenter movie. It was a made-for-Showtime movie that came out. This has some pretty bad audio issues on it, for me. Like, the movie itself, there's a lot of static. It's like in the S's when you listen to it, it's like, shh, you hear like static in the S's when people are talking. And I know this is what they call sibilance or whatever. I worked in a movie theater for years. For 7 years, I was a projectionist. I know film. I know what it looks like on a screen. I know what it sounds like in a theater. I know how magnetic film soundtracks can get. Like, well, the optical one that's on the actual film print, they can get pretty rough. So maybe that's why this sounds like this. Maybe whatever print they had, because they put the uncut version out, that's why it has a lot of static in the sound. But it's pretty dramatic at times. And it seems like, I mean, I've written to them on, and people have mentioned it on the Blu-ray forum as well. And nobody's really taking it seriously. You know, everyone's kind of looking at it like, they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, blah, blah, whatever. I think it's a release that's just kind of going under the radar because it's a great little anthology film, and I love Body Bags, John Carpenter's Body Bags. But it's got, you know, Mark Hamill in it, Stacy Keach is in it, Robert Carradine's in it. It's got some cool people in it. And it was a well-made movie, and I saw the movie when it originally aired on Showtime back in the day. But I really hope that it's not a defect, so to speak, on their part. I hope it's not something that they're doing, and because they're churning things out so fast, this is going to start popping up on future releases. It's watchable, and I can enjoy the movie, and I mean, if you like the movie, I suggest this version because it's the best version you're going to find out there. I don't know if it was released on DVD. It might have come out on DVD. I remember having the old VHS tape of it. But it's kind of lazy with the soundtrack. If this is the only one they had, then fine. I think they should start putting warnings at the beginning of their movies. Like, you know, sometimes when they, you know, when certain film companies like Scorpion Releasing or like Code Red, for example, will put out certain movies, they'll put a warning before the movie that basically says, you know, we use the best materials that we could find, you know, so the audio might have some pops and hisses and crackles and stuff like that, but this is the best material that we had. If that's the case with this release, they should have those warnings before the movie comes on, because if I see that, I go, okay, I'll just live with what I see. I'm willing to accept what's there. But when I don't see any explanation for why it's there, you just naturally assume as a consumer that you have a defective product. So if that's a defective product and nobody ever responds about how to, like, you know what I mean? We're spending money on these releases. You know, these things aren't cheap. Scream Factory's putting these out for like $20. A lot of places are charging up to close to $25 for them. Okay. So with that in mind, they should be informing their public a little bit more. I mean, there's another release that they put out too, which is a great release, Phantasm 2, because that got put out by them. And the transfer looks good. It's a decent transfer. It's not bad. There is what looks like a digital wear line. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It looks like a video wear line, like a weird digital wear line that comes and goes throughout the film. It's at the top of the frame. I haven't watched it in a while, so yeah, it's up towards the top. And it's kind of annoying when you're watching the movie. And you know, people wrote to Scream Factory about this and told them about it, but nobody ever really commented on it. They didn't just say, oh, that's just the way it was. Everyone acted like it didn't exist. And, you know, everyone's touting, and there's reviewers, there's professional reviewers that reviewed the movie and didn't even comment on it. And it's obvious. Like, when I was watching the movie, it stood right out to me, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. Is that a defect? Come to find out, it's not a defect. You know, everybody's copy has it. But, I mean, I guess this is the master that they received from, because it was another Universal film. But I mean, I think they need to QC this stuff a little bit better. Most of their releases are awesome, but there have been a few QC issues. And I mean, I'm not knocking these releases because, I mean, go out and get them because they're friggin' great. If you're a horror movie fan, definitely get them. But there needs to be a level of quality control to this stuff. And since they're churning out so much of it, and we as collectors are spending so much money on this stuff, they really need to, you know, start QCing this stuff a little bit better, because if these problems start happening regularly, they're going to lose their fan base. People are going to stop buying these releases, because who's buying these releases? The collectors, because these aren't easy to find. I mean, my local movie stop carries most of them that comes out now. But I mean, I got to pre-order them through Amazon because nobody's carrying this stuff in store. Stores don't carry this crap anymore anyway, because that's a whole different conversation. But things have changed so much. You can't even go into a store and browse a friggin' movie section anymore because everybody wants to have everything on their phone. Everyone wants to have like Netflix listings and stuff like that. I don't find that as exciting. I'm from the VHS era. I like going into a store, seeing and browsing and looking through the titles. I like looking through a video store. I used to go into video stores, spend hours in video stores just going through, looking for the cool box art and renting those movies and finding movies that I never heard of before. Nowadays, if you've never heard of it, you don't know where to look for it. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're just scrolling through lists of stuff, which most people don't waste their time doing, you're typing in a movie. You say, oh, I want to see this movie. You type it into a search engine on, say, Netflix. And that's what you do. So, it's not the same to me. It's very different. And, going back to the Video Village concept, that time I missed that era. But I'm getting a little off track here on the subjects. But, so going back to the Scream Factory releases, I have so many of these to go through. I don't think I'm going to go through all of them, but I'll dig through a couple other ones for you. I'll pull out some obscurities here, all right? The Town That Dreaded Sundown. This is a movie that growing up I had always seen this video box art. The guy with the sackcloth over it's like a pillowcase over his head, or like some kind of sackcloth. And it's about a killer in Texas. And I had never seen this movie because for years the only version that ever came out was a VHS. And then there was like a Laserdisc, like an import Laserdisc version that was widescreen, because I had a bootleg copy of that. But literally when I say bootleg, I mean I bought it as like a VHS transfer copy, and it was like almost unbearable to watch. It was so dark, you couldn't see anything. The movie's pretty cool, actually. Like, it's got a campy atmosphere. It's got a campy thing. This is The Town That Dreaded Sundown from 1977, directed by a guy named Charles B. Pierce. Right? Yeah, Charles Pierce. And it's Ben Johnson's in it. It says Ben Johnson, Andrew Pine, Dawn Wells from Gilligan's Island is in it, and she's pretty cool in the movie. It kind of plays off like this documentary style, like television show, where you've got the narrator and you're following these cops trying to figure out what's going on and who's killing and what's going on with this killer. It's based on the real life killings, I guess, that took place it was called the Phantom Killer, right? Yeah. Description is when two young lovers are savagely beaten and tortured on a backcountry road in Texarkana. Local police are baffled. 3 weeks later, 2 more people are slain in a similar setting, and Deputy Norman Ramsey fears a pattern might be developing. Texas Ranger J.D. Morales, Ben Johnson, is brought in to help. The 2 officers must find the Phantom Killer before he can kill again. Yeah, it says also starring Andrew Pine, who was in Grizzly, and Dawn Wells from Gilligan Island. Directed by Charles B. Pierce, who made a movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek, which is actually pretty cool, actually. It's a documentary-style movie as well. Bigfoot. It's a Bigfoot movie, and it's a cool one. It's worth checking out if you get a copy. It's a little tricky to find nowadays. And based on one of America's most baffling murder cases, this horrifying suspense thriller is a shocking experience you'll never forget. I really like this movie. It was... It's kind of campy, but what's really great about it is when you get the reenactments of the murder sequences, the movie gets creepy and dark and just goes for it. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty dark. And the best parts of the movie are the reenactments of the murder sequences. The rest of it kind of bumbles around a little bit, but it's entertaining and it's kind of fun to watch. But the reenactment of the murder sequences are creepy and great and classic, like 70s cinema. And this comes with some cool stuff, actually. It comes with a bonus DVD that has another movie called The Evictors, made by Charles Pierce. And it's just on DVD, but it's got Jessica Harper from Suspiria and Phantom of the Paradise, Michael Parks from Django Unchained. This is Argo back here. I guess he was in Argo. Yeah, he was in Argo. And Vic Morrow is in it. Vic Morrow was the guy, actually, if you're familiar with The Twilight Zone, the movie from the 80s, and all the controversy. Vic Morrow was the guy who died while making the movie The Twilight Zone because there was an accident involving a helicopter and a rice paddy and a kid, and it's a pretty disturbing story, actually, and they died while making the movie. Actually, the first story, I guess the first story isn't complete. It's missing some stuff in the original Twilight Zone, the movie. It feels pretty complete. It feels like it kind of wraps up pretty quickly, but I mean, they're short stories anyway in an anthology film, so it's okay. And that one was made by John Landis, and that was a lot. There was a lot of controversy in the 80s over that, and a lot of people to this day won't watch it because they feel like stunt performers weren't being treated properly, and they were doing stuff that they shouldn't have been doing. And I mean, but that's Vic Morrow. Vic Morrow played the main character, the racist character in the first story in the Twilight Zone, the movie. But The Evictors is a great movie too. It's a couple moves into a creepy old Louisiana town, like a house in a Louisiana town. Unaware of its violent history, soon they find themselves tormented by the previous owners. And there's more to it. I won't give it all away because it's worth watching. And there's an audio commentary on here as well, and there's interviews with actors Andrew Prine and Dawn Wells. And this is essay and a poster and still gallery. This is a cool release for a movie that, I guess it has a cult following, but it's a movie that just has never really been available in like a good format, like for people to watch. So if you're so inclined to want to see The Town That Dreaded Sundown, if you remember that poster artwork, the video box with the killer in the sackcloth, and this is The Town That Dreaded Sundown, you always wondered what the hell that movie was, pick it up. Scream Factory put it out. It's a Blu-ray DVD combo. It has it's a great transfer. Actually, the transfer is really good on it. It's one of Scream Factory's better transfers. I'm not sure if they acquired it from somebody or they did it themselves, because they have done some telecine transfers, not scans. Apparently, they don't do scans, like 2K or 4K scans. They do just regular telecine transfers, which the difference between the two is a 2K or 4K scan is scanned frame by frame into a computer. That's how they do a lot of the high definition restorations nowadays. A telecine transfer is how they used to do it for video and Laserdisc and DVD in the early days, where literally it's run through a machine and it's scanned in as it's run through a machine. It's recorded off that machine, but it's more of an organic process. It's not as much of a digital process. So you get a little bit of like wow and flutter. Like, sometimes the frame will jump a little bit and you'll get some issues, but their transfers have all been good. So even if they're just doing telecine stuff on their own, they're doing pretty good telecine stuff, and it fits the movie and it looks good. So, I mean, that's The Town That Dreaded Sundown. If that's something that you want to pick, that you're interested in, I definitely say pick up The Town That Dreaded Sundown. All right. Like I said, I've got so many friggin' releases here to go through. They also put out The Howling, which is freaking awesome. Howling is a great transfer as well. Tons of bonus features. It's got the Hallowed Grounds thing on here as well, and all kinds of stuff. From Beyond by Stuart Gordon, which is a great friggin' movie, and it's the uncut version of the movie. Plenty of bonus features, most of the ones that were on the DVD, and the transfer is really good as well. Let's see, I'm going through kind of quickly. The Fog. This is an interesting movie because The Fog, I was never a huge fan of John Carpenter's The Fog. And this is a collector's edition, and so is The Howling and From Beyond. So it has the flip cover and the sleeve as well with the new commissioned artwork. Who, by the way, which is just a quick side note, there's a Vincent Price collection that came out, which I don't have because I'm not a big fan of those Vincent Price movies. I'll probably watch them again at some point in time because I end up picking up everything. But a guy named Joel Robinson did the cover artwork for that because they're commissioning independent artists to do the cover artwork. And Joel is actually, we paid him to do the poster for our movie, You Better Watch Out. So it's kind of cool. Our poster artwork for You Better Watch Out has a Joel Robinson artwork on it. That we designed the image and told him what we wanted him to do, and he went and he made the image from some photos that we sent him and stuff. But yeah, so it's weird. So we actually have for our horror movie, we have a cover that's made by a guy who did work for Scream Factory, which is pretty cool by me. They got some double features, which are actually pretty cool. One that I loved, which was awesome, was it's a double feature of a movie called X-Ray, which was also aka Hospital Massacre, and a movie called Schizoid. This is an awesome release. These are both like one's 1983 and one's 1980. X-Ray, Hospital Massacre, is just a batshit crazy slasher movie about a woman who, when she's a kid, she basically blows off this guy who likes her, and when she gets older, she goes to a hospital to get results from a test, just a regular routine checkup. And he ends up just like switching her test results. He works for the hospital. He's killing off hospital staff, and he switches her test results. So they think she's got some weird disease, and they keep her in the hospital. And they just keep keeping her like there. She can't leave. They keep coming up with reasons why she can't leave the hospital. And during that time, he's like stalking her and killing people in the hospital and stuff. It is a classic, hilarious movie. Schizoid is more of a thriller in a sense, and it's about this psychologist. It has what's her name? Her name is Donna Wilkes. She was in a movie called Angel, which I love, from the 80s, where she played like a teen prostitute, but it's almost like a weird comedy thriller from the 80s. Anyway, so she's in this, and she plays the daughter of Klaus Kinski, who is this psychologist, and he's, I don't know, people are getting killed off, like all these slasher movies, and it's a mystery. You're trying to figure out who's doing it. But there's just a great, lurid, creepy, trashy, sleazy style to the movie Schizoid that I love. Like, there are certain movies from the 80s, certain slasher films, so to speak, from the 80s, that have this really sleazy style to them. And they're just really, really cool. And they're just like incredibly sleazy movies from the 80s. And Schizoid is one of them that I really, really liked. Christopher Lloyd is in it, and he plays a small Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future, 121 Gigawatts, that guy, who played Doc Brown, which he's in it, and he's got a small role in the movie. He plays like it's like a repairman in a building, and he's like one of like the MacGuffins, basically one of the red herrings in the movie. You wonder if he's the killer or not. So that's a great release if you're into those type of like slasher, trashy, and both of the transfers are great. I don't know, I think they were MGM released movies, and Scream Factory has a whole thing with MGM, so they've been releasing a lot of those movies. But yeah, so X-Ray and Schizoid, that's a good one if you want. There's some other small ones that came out. They put out another double feature, TerraVision and the video Dead, which is awesome. Both transfers are great on that. They both got tons of good bonus features. I'm just going to go through these quickly because there's so many to go through, and I'm coming up on time here. I was trying to give this podcast about an hour, and I'm already at an hour, and I've been going for a while. So they released an Amityville Horror box set, which has got tons of cool bonus features on it. It's got all the original artwork, poster artwork on the individual discs. And it's the first time that Amityville 3D has ever been released in actual good 3D that you can watch at your house. And it works pretty damn good. Like, I've watched the movie multiple times, even though it's not the best Amityville. It's fun to watch, to actually see if you have like a modern 3D TV. I'm talking real 3D, with the polarized glasses, polarized 3D. And I don't know, it's a great release, and it's just cool to see those movies. Really wish Warner/Paramount would have done that with Friday the 13th Part 3 when they put it out in the box set, but I guess you can't get everything all the time. They a couple of the releases they did, which were awesome. Psycho 2 and 3, which I love. Psycho 2 and 3. These are really good transfers. See, those are all good transfers. They've done cool stuff. They put out Prison. It's a Rennie Harlan movie from the 80s. There's so many good movies. Just look up Scream Factory online, and if you're into this type of stuff. Another big one that they did was The Burning, because that movie never got a really good release. Day of the Dead came out by them. But, yeah, I don't know. This is what I'm going to be doing. This is what our podcast, I'm going to try to close this out now. And maybe we'll talk about some more of these on another edition, because I can go on and on and on. But I really just want to review movies, talk about movies in general. We'll talk about Roadkill Entertainment stuff. We're going to try to have some fun with this, and this is the inaugural ones. This is episode 1. And I just wanted to do this myself, so I could introduce myself to you. You guys could know who I am, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get something out of it. I hope it makes you go out and maybe buy some Scream Factory stuff, And a few announcements of stuff that's coming out. Scream just announced that they're putting out Ginger Snaps, which is awesome. Dog Soldiers, not a big fan of Dog Soldiers, but I can't wait for that. If you haven't heard, Snaps Releasing got the rights to Suspiria, and they're putting out Suspiria next year sometime. And they're also doing Prom Night in Curtains, which is freaking awesome. And we can talk more about that at another time. But tons of good stuff coming out from these small labels. Code Red just started putting out Blu-rays, and they did Just Before Dawn. There's not really anything extra on there, except there's an extended cut of the movie, like from a rough print. But it's a really good transfer. And if you're interested in that stuff, go to Code Red, look them up online, and you can order these directly through Code Red's website. Kind of like the same thing that we do through our website. Actually, I kind of stole use a company called Big Cartel, and I kind of stole that from them, but because I like the cart setup. So, but yeah, so there's tons of stuff coming out, and there's a million things to talk about, and I can go, like I said, I can go on and on and on. But I think I've given you enough information for today, and we're gonna try to do an episode a month, and they will vary in length. The ones where it's just me are probably going to be about an hour long, just over. Maybe we'll go a little longer with the other ones. I have a few ideas for upcoming episodes, so keep posted, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you go out and buy some movies, and I hope you check out the Roadkill Entertainment site. And my name is Jay Byrne, and thanks for listening to Video Village. Roadkill Entertainment presents Episode 1 of Video Village. Take care. Hope you listen again.